That night, I climbed the stairs with tears in my eyes, and my legs were shaking because of the thing I had just heard from the landlord. When I reached the balcony, the small boy was standing there again, quiet and still, looking at the road like someone who was waiting for a ghost. The street light was shining on his face, and I felt something inside my chest break because I finally understood why he stood there every night. My hand was shaking as I touched the cold rail, and in that moment, I knew that my life in this new compound would never be normal again. My story did not start on the stairs that night. It started 1 week earlier when I moved into the old two-story house in Surulere. I came with 2 bags, a small fan, and 1 plastic cooler my sister gave me. The compound was not fine, but it was quiet, and I liked that. Upstairs had broken tiles, and downstairs had that smell of kerosene that enters your nose and stays there. The families living there looked tired but friendly. I told myself that this place would be small but peaceful. On my first night, after arranging my things, I stepped outside to get some fresh air. That was when I saw him for the first time. A small boy standing on the upstairs balcony, not moving at all. His hands were on the rail. His eyes were on the gate. He looked like someone who forgot he was alive. I greeted him with a small wave, but he did not answer. He did not even blink. I stood there wondering if he was shy or sick or maybe angry. The next night, at the same time, the boy came out again. Same place, same position, same quietness. At first, I thought it was just children playing silent game, but by the 4th night, my mind refused to rest. Something was wrong. I could feel it the same way a person feels a headache before it comes. The other tenants were passing around him without fear, like this thing he was doing was normal. That one even made me more worried. One evening, I gathered courage and asked one woman beside the well who the boy was. She just shook her head and said I should ask the landlord because it was not her mouth that would say it. That answer made me even more confused. Why would a simple question about a boy make people act like they were hiding something? So, that night, when I saw the boy again at exactly 9 p.m., I walked down to the gate to meet Baba Akin, the landlord. He was sitting on his usual plastic chair, counting money he collected from tenants. I asked him about the boy. At first, he looked at me like he wanted to pretend he did not hear. Then his face changed, his shoulders dropped, his eyes became wet, even though he was not crying. Then he told me the story that pushed me up the stairs with tears in my eyes. And as I reached the balcony that night and stood beside the small boy, I knew that my life in that compound was about to carry a story heavier than any load I brought with me. When I stood beside the boy that night, he did not even look at me. His eyes stayed on the road like something important was supposed to appear any minute. The street outside the gate was quiet. Only one keke passed and the sound faded quickly. I wanted to talk to him, but after what the landlord told me, my mouth refused to open. I just stayed there with him until his mother came out to carry him inside. She held his hand gently, the way someone holds something that is already broken. She looked at me for 1 second, her eyes tired and swollen. Then she led him inside without a word. When I got back to my room, I sat on my bed thinking of the story the landlord told me. He said the boy's name was Dara, and every night his father used to call him from the road. The man would wave at him, smile, and shout his name with joy before climbing the stairs. It was their small love. The father died on that same road 2 months ago, hit by a drunk driver. And since then, Dara kept coming out at 9 p.m., waiting for a man who would never call again. The thing touched me so deep that sleep did not see my eyes that night. The next morning, the compound looked normal again, like nothing heavy was sitting on it. Children were running around, the woman who sold akara was shouting her price, and someone upstairs was beating a bucket like drum. But even with the noise, I kept thinking about the boy. I wanted to help him, but I did not know how to help a child carrying a pain that big. Later in the afternoon, I saw him sitting by the stairs, holding a small plastic car. He was rolling it up and down the step, not smiling, not frowning, just doing it like a robot. I sat 2 steps below him. I did not want to scare him, so I talked small. I told him my name was Chibuike and that I was new in the compound. He did not answer. He did not even look at me. But he stopped rolling the car for 1 second, like he heard me but did not know what to do with the information. Then he continued playing. I stayed there for a long time. Even if he did not talk to me, I wanted him to know someone was close. After some minutes, his mother came out with a small bowl of rice. She thanked me quietly for sitting with him. Her voice was soft but weak, like someone who had cried too much and now had no strength left. As the days passed, I noticed more things. The boy never laughed. He never played with other children. He did not run around or shout like his age mates. Every 9 p.m., he climbed the stairs without fail. Even if rain was falling, he stood there under the small shade, watching the same road, waiting for the same man. One evening, I saw him standing at the balcony earlier than usual. His mother was in the room crying. I could hear her, even though she tried to cover her face with pillow. I walked up and stood beside Dara again. This time, he turned his face a little, just enough to show he knew I was there. For the first time, I felt like he allowed me into a small world of pain. And I knew that something was coming, something that would either break him more or finally start to change him.
The day that changed everything started quietly, the way trouble sometimes enters a place without noise. It was a Saturday morning, and the sun was already hot like midday. I was sweeping the small corridor in front of my room when I heard children shouting outside the gate. Their voices were sharp, too sharp, the type that tells you something is not play. I dropped my broom and walked out fast. When I reached the gate, I saw Dara sitting on the ground, his small shirt covered with dust. 2 older boys stood in front of him, holding the plastic car he always played with. They were laughing and raising it high so he could not reach it. Dara's face was blank, the same blank look he always had, but his breathing was fast. He stretched his hand to take the car, but they slapped his hand away and pushed him again. The thing touched my chest. Something hot moved inside me. Before I even thought, I walked straight to the boys and collected the toy from them. I asked them what they were doing. They said they were only playing, but the look in their eyes told me they were lying. I told them to go home before I called their parents. They hissed and ran away. I turned to Dara. He was not crying. He was not shaking. He just stood up slowly and brushed his shorts like nothing happened. I walked him back into the compound. He followed me like someone who had accepted pain as normal. When we reached the stairs, he stopped and looked up, as if checking the balcony, even though it was still morning. I bent down and gave him the toy. He held it with 2 hands and walked upstairs without a word. His mother came out minutes later to thank me. Her eyes were red again. She said the boys had been disturbing him for weeks, calling him ghost boy and balcony child. I felt anger rise inside me. I wanted to march to their house and shout, but when I looked at her face, I knew her heart was already too weak to carry more pain. That evening, I sat outside on a plastic chair watching the sky get dark. Something had shifted in me. I no longer felt like a new tenant passing through. I felt responsible for that child. I felt like I needed to understand him more, to know what his father was like, to know why he waited in that same quiet way every night. At 9 p.m., as always, Dara stepped onto the balcony. But this time, I stood up before he even reached the rail. I climbed the stairs slowly, making sure I did not startle him. When I reached the balcony, I stood by the wall, giving him space. The road outside was calm. A few cars passed. The street light blinked once, then steadied. After a long silence, something happened that shocked me. Dara spoke. His voice was small, almost like breeze, but I heard it clearly. He asked me if he thought his father would come back one day. My heart squeezed so tight I almost forgot how to breathe. He was not looking at me, he was still looking at the road. But the question was real, and it hung in the air like heavy smoke. I did not know how to answer. I did not want to lie. I did not want to break him either. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. In the end, I said nothing. I just stood there with him, sharing the silence. And for the first time since I came to that compound, I knew I was no longer just watching his story. I was now inside it, fully, deeply, whether I was ready or not. The next few days felt heavier than before because of the question Dara asked me. It stayed inside my head everywhere I went. Even when I was cooking or washing plate, I kept hearing that small voice asking if his father would ever come back. I wanted to help him, but I was afraid of giving him the wrong kind of hope. I was afraid of breaking something inside him that was already weak. One afternoon, the compound became noisy because one tenant was moving out. People were dragging chairs, shouting prices, and arguing over who scratched whose car. In the middle of all the noise, I looked up and saw Dara sitting alone by the balcony door. He was hugging his small car to his chest, watching people pack their belongings. I walked up and sat beside him. He did not run, he did not move away, he just sat still. I asked him if he wanted food. He shook his head. I asked if he wanted to play. He shook again. His eyes stayed on the corridor, like he was searching for something. His mother watched us quietly from the room. She looked tired, but I could see she was grateful that he was not alone. Later that evening, something happened that made me understand just how deep the boy's wound was. Around 8:30 p.m., before it was time for his usual balcony moment, he ran down the stairs for the first time since I met him. I was sitting near the gate and I stood up immediately. His mother came out shouting his name, fear in her voice. He ran past me and stopped on the exact spot on the road where his father had died. Cars were passing, honking, but he stood there like he could not see danger at all. I rushed to him and pulled him back before anything touched him. He struggled a little, not to fight me, but as if he was confused why I was stopping him. When I carried him to the side, he pointed at the road and said his father used to stand there. His voice was shaking, like he was trying not to cry. That was the moment I realized he had never visited the spot before. He had been watching from far, from the balcony, but he had never touched the ground where the accident happened. His mother reached us and knelt down, hugging him tightly. She cried into his hair, whispering that she was sorry, that she did not know he wanted to go there. Her whole body was shaking. The neighbors came outside, watching with sad eyes but not knowing how to help. When we got them back into the compound, I made sure they were safe inside their room. After that, I sat outside alone thinking about everything. This child was drowning in silence, and his mother was drowning too. That night, I decided something inside me. Waiting with him every 9 p.m. was no longer enough. This situation needed more than standing beside him. It needed a way to carry him out of that darkness little by little. As the time reached 9 p.m., Dara came out again, this time walking slowly and gently holding his mother's hand. They stepped onto the balcony together. I joined them. We all stood there, 3 people watching one quiet road, but each of us with different thoughts. Then Dara surprised us again. He moved closer to me and held my finger with his small hand. It felt heavy. It felt like trust. It felt like the first tiny step out of a long night. And as we stood there, I knew the time had come for me to help him do what he had been afraid to do since his father died. It was time for him to say goodbye, not by forgetting, but by letting go enough for his heart to breathe again.
The morning after Dara stood on the road, I woke up with one clear thought in my mind. The boy could not continue living inside the same painful circle every night. His heart was stuck in a place his legs were too small to carry him out from. I felt strongly that we needed to help him take one last step with his father, a step that would not erase his man's memory, but would free the child from waiting in vain. The idea scared me because I did not know if it was the right thing, but doing nothing scared me even more. I went to the landlord first. I told him what happened the previous night. His face became dull with worry. He said the mother had refused to take Dara to the exact spot since the accident because she could not bear to see it herself. I understood her, but I also knew that hiding pain sometimes made it grow bigger. We talked for a long time and decided that the boy and his mother needed a gentle way to face the place together, not in a hard way, not with force, but with love and support around them. When I went upstairs to speak to her, she was sitting on the floor with her back against the wall. Dara was sleeping beside her. She looked at me with eyes that had cried for too long. I sat down quietly and explained my idea. At first, she shook her head. Her whole body tensed like someone preparing to run. But after some time, she placed her hand on her chest and nodded slowly. She said she would try, because she wanted her son to breathe again. That evening, before 9 p.m. reached, the whole compound became calm. People lowered their voices as if they knew something important was happening. When Dara woke up, his mother dressed him in a clean shirt. She held his hand and came out slowly. I joined them, and together we walked toward the gate. The boy held his small toy car tightly. Outside, the road was quiet. The street light blinked the way it always did. We walked to the exact spot where his father used to wave from, where he had died, the same place Dara had run to that previous night. When we reached there, the boy stopped walking. His breathing became fast. His mother knelt beside him and pulled him close. She held his face in her palms and spoke softly to him, telling him his father loved him, telling him his father was not coming back the way he used to, telling him it was okay to miss him without waiting for him. Dara looked at the road for a long time. Then he placed his small toy car gently on the ground. His small hand shook, but he did it. His mother started crying again. I did not touch them. I only stood close enough for Dara to know he was not alone. After some time, he picked up the toy again, wiped his face, and reached for his mother's hand. When we walked back into the compound, something about him looked different. He still had sadness in his eyes, but it was not the same heavy darkness I first saw. It looked softer, like a wound beginning to close. At 9 p.m., he did not rush to the balcony. He came out later, slower, more calm. He stood there, but this time he did not wait with that stiff, desperate stillness. He only looked at the road for a few minutes, then turned and sat beside me. That night, as the cool air brushed our faces, I realized the boy had taken his first step toward healing. He had not forgotten his father. He never would, but he had stopped waiting for footsteps that would never climb those stairs again. And as I sat beside him, watching him lean gently against my arm, I understood something too. Sometimes healing is not one big moment. Sometimes it is a small hand reaching out in the dark, hoping someone will hold it long enough until morning comes.